Well, well, well. What do we have here? More RideTech goodness. And some big Wilwards. Good morning, everybody. We got some good stuff to put in today. So, what we got laid out here in front of us, this is all of our stuff for our 1972 Chevelle project that we're putting together. This is a full RideTech suspension, front and rear, coilovers, the whole 9 yards. What this kit consists of, big pieces, is we got the kit with a 9-inch rear end. Center section is over there with 370 gears. We have RideTech's pin spindles instead of using their stock style. Instead, you can get them with pin spindles, or you can get them with a bolt-in hub that I believe fits like a C5 Corvette hub, so you can use all that size brakes. Then we have our lower and upper A-arm, strong arm kits. These are your front coilovers there. These are your rear coilovers here. This is your rear sway bar, your front sway bar, your rear lower control arms, your rear upper control arms, 31 spline axles for the 9-inch, big Wilward brakes with black calipers on this one. The Pace Car Trans Am is getting red calipers, basically the same setup except for that it's got a 4-link conversion in the rear, which this car doesn't need because the A-bodies already come with a 4-link in them. Essentially, this is the same exact kit that we did already in our 71 GTO Pro Touring project. I believe brakes and all. Yeah, this has the black calipers too. So this will be basically the same exact install as that was, but I'm going to take you through it. And we have to start by disassembling some of the stuff on the existing car already. Full disclosure, there's no engine and transmission in this, so it'll make it a little bit easier to get stuff like your upper control arm mounts off, only because usually on this side, if you have especially a big block with headers, gets in the way of sliding these tie bars all the way off. But we have to do some disassembly, and I have to strip out some stuff we're not going to be needing. So we are not going to be needing any of these breather hoses for the emission stuff, so those are all going to get torn out. Thankfully, this one is just ended right up here instead of running the full length down the frame, because that's a pain in the butt to cut out. And we will be taking out this fuel line all the way to the front, taking the whole thing out, since we are using our big Roush Yates 650 horse big block 496, a minimum of 6 AN lines. So we might even go 8 AN on this. It's an NA motor, it's not boosted, but you want to make sure it's got plenty of fuel. These fuel lines, just don't need them. We'll be getting a bolt-in tank that will have the proper pump and inlet outlets that we need for this whole setup. But yeah, other than that, unlike the GTO, which had all of the factory emissions and charcoal canister lines and all that stuff in here, this one does not. It only has this fuel line on that side, and thankfully that one is cut up above there, so we can get that out rather easy. This is your brake line. You're keeping that here. And I will most likely be doing the e-brake the same way we did it in the GTO to keep that clean and neat. I don't even think this has... No, this doesn't even have an e-brake pedal assembly in this yet. So I will just do them up into the mounts here and leave them there. And we'll figure out the mid-mount into the front one when we get to that point. We are just getting this together now. The goal is for this week to get the entire suspension done, which shouldn't be a big problem. It's not that difficult. And get the 496 big block and 4L80 in the vehicle. So then all the sheet metal can be hung and it can go and be wet sanded and cleaned up. And then we can start doing fun stuff to it after that. But let's start with some disassembly. All right, I saved the monotony of pulling off the wheels, getting this fuel line snaked out of the frame rail. We're going to start now with removing my rear sway bar, the front sway bar, undoing my tie rods. We're going to pull this axle, this whole rear axle out as an assembly, leave the control arms in the car, then unbolt the control arms. I will be reusing the flex hose back here. I will make a mount to the 9-inch, and then just make new lines off to my Willward discs in the rear. The front, all the lines and everything will be leaving. I will be reusing the mounts. Willward gives you flex lines off of the calipers that will go right into here, right into my factory lines. Literally the only things I'll have to run is 2 lines from my proportionate valve here up to my master cylinder that we do not have yet, but we will be getting soon. So, like I said, rear sway bar, front sway bar, undo these. We're reusing the steering, so the steering will stay in it, but I'm undoing these so I can get A-arms, the spindles, all that stuff off of here. And this is all brand new stuff. It's just brand new factory stuff. Like, it's all brand new right down to the shocks. So we may have this stuff up for sale later. We have now, between this car and the GTO, 2 A-bodies worth of brand new suspension that we're not going to be using, so we might sell it. It's got, like, both of them had brand new arms, ball joints, springs, shocks, sway bars, everything's brand new on both of them. We just don't do stock stuff. So, all right, so let me get those few small things off, and then we'll start some heavy disassembly. All right, sway bars are out, tie rods are undone. I'm going to work on getting the front calipers off. No reason to take the rear drums or anything off, since those are just coming down with the entire axle, and that's getting moved to the side somewhere. But I will get off my calipers, my steering brackets. We'll take the rotors off. We'll clean the spindles off real quick with some rags so I don't end up getting grease all over me. And then we'll be upper and lower ball joints, take the spindle itself off, and then we'll be on to the control arms. All right, so we are stripped down, in the front anyways. I figured, why bore you watching me take bolts out of this stock crap, because it literally just comes apart how it looks, and there's 1.5 million videos online on YouTube on how to disassemble all this crap. You guys don't care about that. You want to see me put the cool stuff back on here. So now that I am stripped out as far as I need to go, I need to look at 2 things, because I believe we replaced these bump stops with lower profile polyurethane units that come in the kit, and I need to see if we do any trimming in here. I know on the F bodies you do, on the A bodies I believe you don't, but I'm going to read through the instructions anyways and see, because that is the smart thing to do. Alright, so step 1, while you get everything apart, is the only modifications you need to make to the frame is your existing shock pass-through. You need to drill this to 3/4 of an inch. So if you get a 3/4 inch drill bit, or step bit, anything, that'll do. So we're going to do that now. Alright, so both of those sides are drilled out, and if you ever want to make sure you drilled them out to the correct size, just grab one of your front coilover bushings. One of them will have this sleeve on it, the other one has a hole that accepts it, and just make sure it goes in. And that is perfect. Alright, so I've grabbed my passenger upper control arm. As you can tell by the P, don't forget to put your Zerk fitting in. They don't come in, so you got to put that in that. Hardware you'll need to mount this. So you have your 2 caster slugs here. I'll explain those in a minute. You have your 2 big washers. They'll be going on the outsides here. We won't be putting those on yet. 2 lock nuts for those. And you have 2 7/16 washers, flat washers. You have double of all this for the other side. It uses the stock hardware to mount. So these washers will go on here with whatever existing shims you pulled out, so that you can go and get a good baseline and then alter those shims for your caster camber. And speaking of caster camber, so RideTech gives you these slugs. They mount right in here. They're very precise fits. Let's see if I can get this one hand. I can. So they go right in like that. These are centered. These are for your all-around street driving. They also, if you want to get really aggressive with caster, they offer, I believe it's 1/8 inch and 1/4 inch offsets. So you can offset them to the front or flip them, offset them to the rear. Now, let me put this one in here. With that, you also have 2 options to mount this on the car. So let me show you. So, as you can see, you have an indent here. So mounted just like this, they call this their street performance setting. So if you wanted to get super aggressive for track settings, you would spin this bar 180 and this flat section instead would be mounted against here. So you can go like crazy autocross settings on this thing if you want. Us, it's just street settings. So we're gonna take this, mount it on here like so. Make sure your pucks stay in there nice and tight. Then, where did I put them? They're over here. Your 2 7/16 washers, your 2 factory nuts. So glad they put anti-seize all over these, because that's what I wanted all over my hands. I'm going to back these off to put the shims in here that they had. And torque these down. Alright, next up, once those are all tight, you'll see these move nice and free. So, you put your 2 washers on here, put your 2 lock nuts on here, and you want to tighten these until they have, you want to get it started first, there it is, until you have just a bit more drag than what they have on it now. These are not rubber bushings, these are not polyurethane, these are Delrin, which are better than both of those for handling. So you don't want to be clamping in on them because you don't need to. They're not designed like that, like rubber bushings are. So tighten those up, rinse and repeat on that side. So just to show you so you guys don't freak out, you see this side, the bushing turns with it when it's all tightened and done. But this side, it does not. Doesn't matter. As long as you're tightened where you're supposed to be tightened, it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Also, factory A body. You keep your factory, or I should say A body, you keep your factory upper bump stop. The F bodies, I know change that out, but the A bodies keep it. Alrighty, front coil spring, or coilover installation. It's not too bad. You'll have 2 of these packs with your fronts, you'll have 2 of these coilovers, you'll have 2 coils. Do not mix up your front and rear coils. They are not interchangeable for multiple reasons. You know, length, weight, all that kind of stuff for poundage. So, what you're going to need is a number 10 Torx, because you have to take off your, once it stops spinning, there we go. I'm just going through your adjustments. You have to take off, geez, there's a lot of adjustment here. There we go. Your knob, because the knob has to come off, then the nut has to come off, then your upper collar and half of your sleeve comes off, then your lower collar and the other half of your sleeve comes off. This stuff can all stay here. Alright, next, push this crap to the side because you won't need it for a couple minutes. Open up your adjustment collars. So you can get multiple different options with these. This is your lower. This is going to mount down here. You'll have a Delrin sleeve that will go on top of that. You'll have a Delrin sleeve that will go on top of this one. This will be your upper. So once this is assembled, this will be through here with that snap ring and locked into place. You can get, they have an upgrade kit that replaces these with roller bearings. They are quite nice. They're not needed, but they are nice to have. Lower friction always is a better thing. So what I like to do is we'll throw a little bit of grease on the threads here, because you don't want these to gall up, and put my main collar down. And then on the main collar, I will grease this, throw my Delrin bushing on, grease that, then throw my coil spring on, and do the same thing on these uppers. So not a lot of grease here. You just want some smooth gliding threads. And The threads on this will spread that grease around. You'll also notice this little plastic peanut in there. Leave that in there until you get this down where it needs to be, because this does have tension on it. If you pop that out, it'll still go on, but it won't be going on as smoothly as this. So as you can see where it slowed down right there, because the grease is getting in the threads, which is what you want. Okay, so from past experience, I know about 1.25 inches up from the bottom of your sticker is where you want to be, but that can be adjusted later, because you need to make sure you have enough room, which this looks like it's going to have plenty, for that upper collar. So you will end up adjusting these anyways with your adjustment tool that they give you once you're back in the car, so you can set your ride height. But this is about it, and I'll show you, I'll bring you back once we get to the top part. Alright, we're back. So you're just going to throw that on there like that. That's all you need to do. Put that on there, and now you'll get a little bit of zero preload on here. It's not going to actually preload anything because this is still loose, because you can't tighten this yet. I will show you what I mean in a minute. So that's going to hold this kind of where I need it to be for now. There we go, that'll do it. So you can't put all your hardware back on here first, because once, I'm going to show you also, I also like a little paintbrush. I'm Bob Ross with grease over here. Just grease this in a little bit for your lower bushing. So these rotate on here. It's supposed to, don't worry about it. Not supposed to be a tight fit on here. And that's because the angle on this will change as your suspension changes, ever so slightly, but enough where they wanted to do that. So you can't put this upper on yet, can't put the nut on yet, you can't put your adjustment knob back on there yet, because we have to put it in the car first. But now that we are where we need to be here, I'm going to pop the peanut out and put this Allen in, which goes in there, which is going to lock this into place. But I'm not going to fully tighten this yet, because we got to do a bunch of adjustments. So I'm just going to get it snug. Alrighty, so we are ready to head back over the car. This, I just used an Allen and just snugged it up, so it's snug. So you can still turn with the tool, but not by hand, because you don't want that jumping any threads. First time you put this down and put weight on it, but meet you back over at the car. Alright, so now that we're back over here, I like to take my grease again, grease both sides of this Delrin bushing. You're going to slide your coilover up and through until your bushing is through. And I will grease this side that the other bushing meets up to. We will put the bushing on. We will put the cap on. Actually, I'm going to grease that again some more. And then I will show you how we tighten this. So throw your upper on. Throw your lock nut on. So let me go grab a couple wrenches, and I'll show you how you tighten this down according to them. Alright, so you need a 7/8 and what is it, 7/16. And you just start tightening. Don't let the shock piston actually turn. You just tighten the nut down to it. And you just keep going until it starts to get snug. Alright, so we're starting to snug up here. We don't have any more up and down play. So what they say is you want it snug. But you want this to be able to rotate freely. You don't want this to be so tight that this can't move. So it's kind of weird, because it's kind of a do it at your own feel type of deal. But I feel like that's good right there. Give it just a little bit more. Yeah. So that's good right there. So I can still move it around with a little bit of force, but it's not gonna rattle around inside here. I kind of wish they would just, like, you know, do it to so-and-so inch pounds or whatnot, but This is what we're working with. Now, you're almost done on your one side. You just have to put your adjustment knob back on. And if I can fish this tiny little Torx out of my pocket, put your Torx back on. And this, tighten this all the way down in so you're not fighting against it. And you're just gonna snug it up like that. You don't need any more than that. So they give you adjustments at the end of the instructions, like how to set it up for street aggressive, track, all that stuff. So don't be too concerned that you're moving this all around right now, because you'll set that up like last step basically. All right, next up is the lower control arms. I've already bench assembled them. I will show you what I did. Just putting my hardware together. Washers go on the outside with the lock nuts. You don't need any washer on the other side. This is for your shock mount. They give you these two shock bushings. Those will come out when we slide this up to put it on the shock. Right now, I just got them in there so we don't lose them. These are your steering bump stops. They give you a nut and a bolt. I always just bottom them all the way in first, and then you can adjust them out if you need to, if you have a tire combination that rubs somewhere or something. We usually don't. We haven't had an issue just having them all the way in, so you can go full lock to lock, but that's how you would adjust that if you did. So now I'm going to pick these up, put them up over here in my mounts. All right, let's get this up in there. And I did grease each side of the bushings. You don't have to, they don't say to, but that is force of habit. So the bolts go from front to back. You see where they are here. Let's get this back one in, and then I can line everything up. Oh, we're gonna fight me, huh? There we go. Let me get my persuader. Persuaded. And a washer and a nylon lock nut on each side. I'm not going to tighten these down yet though, because I've got other stuff to do. All right, now our shock mount, or coilover mount, I should say. So we've got these two bushings that are recessed to fit inside the spherical joint on here, and I will turn this to get it somewhere lined up so it's kind of easy, so I don't have to fight so much with it. And we will raise our control arm while holding these in here. Let's see, should be right about there. Go forward some. Same deal, bolt it from front to back. Another washer, nylon lock nut. And now you can torque all these down. The control arm bolts, I believe, they say to do those to 75 foot-pounds. Just check your instructions. They're different for every make and model. And they give you a spec for this as well. I just did not memorize it. I got to go look at it. And I will torque all these down. And once I rinse and repeat on that side, then we can put the spindle up on. Well, there we go. We have finished upper and lower control arms on both sides now, and the coilovers in. Not adjusted yet because, you know, we don't have the weight of the car on it. And I can't even adjust them even with the weight of the car on it because there's no engine, transmission, front clip, any of that stuff. So next up is going to be our spindles. And those, I'm going to open everything up and lay it out over here because there are some stuff we have to switch over. So main thing being, we have to switch over our steering arms, because they include not only the steering arm, but the steering stop itself. And there's supplied hardware and everything, because you cannot bolt through like this on the ones that RideTech gives you. So you're going to bolt into it this time, or this way, with shorter bolts that won't stick through and hit your rotor. Alright, so I'm going to show you these spindles side by side, so you can see the differences in them and how you attain your drop. So, you see you have 2 holes here, you have 1 hole there. Basically what happens is the pin, which they call the pin, so your actual axle spindle, is 2 inches higher than what it is on your factory one. And these are also tall spindles to keep your suspension geometry where it needs to be. Between here and here and here and here, there's quite a difference. But these will be getting swapped over. You're not using your brake, well, we're not using it because we're doing Willwoods. So we're not using brake brackets, brakes, any of this stuff, but you can swap all this stuff onto the new one if you want to. Well, guys, I went to go fit stuff up before I got back on camera with the spindles, and I saw something. So you have this piece here that's supposed to hit your steering stop and be your steering stop, and you can adjust this in and out. That is not in there. So I don't know what's going on with that. So I looked everything over 3 times and everything, and then I realized, ooh, we have another same generation A body right there with this whole kit on it. And then I stuck my head under that one and I looked. That vehicle has completely different spindles from this vehicle. Oh, I got grease on my GoPro. Will you stop? The instructions and the packing list and everything say that these are the correct spindles for this vehicle, for this application. So I don't know if maybe we need a different steering arm. That's why I was on the phone with customer service. And then 5 o'clock hit, so everything just shut off, which is great. But the thing is, though, also, so physically these spindles are completely different from the spindles that are in that car, which should be the same. Looking up, the whole kit that we have in that car now on the website comes up with the part number for these spindles, which is not what's in that car. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. I need to put a jack under that tomorrow and take a look at the steering arms, because if this section of the steering arm is shaped different, as in it kicks back here more, might just order some steering arms for a 71 GTO and throw them on here, because you can't do this because we have no way to adjust steering stop. So you could technically cut the wheel all the way in and your wheel could hit something here and your tire could rub here, inner fender well, whatever. Bolt-on stuff, ain't it grand? So, as of right now, this is the end of the video for now, but I'll be back tomorrow morning, which will be, 12 hours or so for me. It'll be snap of a finger for you. And we will figure this out. I got to get back on the phone with RideTech and talk to one of their customer service techs and figure out what the F is going on here. This is kind of weird. All right, see you tomorrow. Alrighty, guys, it's the next morning. As I said, snap of a finger for you. While I was eating my Chinese food last night, my OCD went into overdrive and I started doing some research online. And I got to jack up the GTO just to confirm. But as you can see, this steering stop comes straight down basically from the bolt. And I'm like, that's weird. I really haven't seen them like this before, because usually they do come way out like this. So I started looking up factory units, and sure as hell, they come out here. Looks like about maybe, the 3/4 of the inch that I need. So what I'm going to do, they have these in stock at Summit, the correct ones I need, if this is in fact my issue. So what I'm going to do is measure the ones on the GTO, and if they are, then that means that somewhere along the line, whoever was rebuilding these cars, because you reuse this from the factory unit, or factory piece, and you put it on their unit. They did not put the right steering arms on this car. So, physically looking at the picture of them, from this bolt, this one comes down straight, the other one comes down like over here. So, pretty sure that's my issue. So that's my first thing I'm going to do today after I move out my fleet of American Thunder. Alright guys, so that hypotenuse was wrong. These are the same steering arms that are on the GTO. What I did realize after going over the suspension in the GTO, even though that was done just about a year ago, uppers, lowers, spindle, everything has been redesigned. We'll get into that in a minute. So the spindles that are on the GTO are Speedway spindles, which RideTech uses, until they started using these spindles, which are from G-Force. They haven't had any issues with these, and I 100% believe them. The construction of the uppers and the lowers are totally different, but they said they're updated and have been obviously tested through R&D and engineering and all that stuff, so they are unclear as to why this is happening. So right now we are stuck at an impasse on the front. So instead, I'm just going to get started on the back. Alright, so to get this started with the disassembly, I've already disconnected my brake lines from here. I might actually reuse these and just cut them here and put a flare fitting on to my flex hose that goes to my brake caliper. But we are going to undo our lower shock mounts. We're just going to take the shocks out altogether, actually. Undo my lower control arm mounts at the axle, my upper control arm mounts at the axle, undo my clips and remove my e-brake cables, take the springs out, undo my clamp that holds the flex hose to the top of the axle, and then we're going to lower the axle out of the way before we start taking all the rest of the control arm stuff out. And that's about it. So that's all we're going in for a disassembly for here. This is boring stuff. We'll get back to you when I'm ready to put some new stuff back in. Alright, we're into reassembly in the rear. So, like I said, rear lower control arms, rear uppers. You'll get these spacers. Will go on each side of these, and then they'll mount in your stock locations, just as so, with a bolt, spacer, spacer, washer, bolt, and then of course through your sheet metal there. So we're going to put these bottoms in loosely, put the tops in loosely, because then we have these. They give you nice spherical, they're nice Heim style joints for the top of the rear end. So if we were reusing this rear end, those replace these bushings, but we're not using this rear end. We're using our 9-inch over there, so we're going to push them into that, and they give you some installation tool stuff, a big all thread and some sleeves, so you can push all this stuff in, and washers and all that stuff. Those are all your install tools. They're good for one use, which is good because you only need to use it once, or technically twice, but one car. Alright, so unlike the Camaro Firebird kits that offset these inward more, these don't offset, they just go straight in as is. So I'm going to put my two bushings in here, and I like to put these so the RideTech faces the outside even though you don't see them. Let me grab a pin real quick. So I just grab a random piece of hardware bolt, get these up in there, slide that through to hold it, because now there's an access hole in this side of the frame that I have to slide this bolt through, and I'll have to do that with an extension and a socket on there to guide it in through, and then your nut and bolt will go on this side. Then do the same thing on the other side. Don't tighten these yet until you get your rear end in, and then you can tighten everything. Unlike rubber bushings, these can all be tightened up as soon as you get them in, because they actually have movement in them, unlike the rubber bushings that will have like an elastic rebound on them if you tighten them without the suspension being loaded. Alright, for the upper arms, it's the same spacer on each side, on the body side, that is, because the other side slides over these joints we're going to put in. These do come preset, but they do say to check them. They should be 10.26 inches, which is 10 1/4 inches from center to center, eyelet to eyelet. And we are good. And we are good. So these are also what you would adjust if you need to adjust your pinion angle after, for whatever reason you would need to adjust it. Alright, got my spacer on each side. Then put it up in here and throw the bolt in. And they say put the bolt in from this way out, and I would say to do that too, because you get more clearance over here for your exhaust to run out now. And then nut and washer on this side, rinse and repeat over there. And now we're going to go put those bushings in the rear end that's over there. Well, I would love to show you how this whole tool works that they give you to press these in, except that they didn't give me these two nuts here. I've got the washers, but no nuts, and this is a machine thread, and we don't have that thread in a nut here. So I'll grease these things up and put them in with a dead blow, and you're not going to watch me do that. All right, so I got them in. We're good to go. Up into the vehicle now. Don't take this as any inclination on how these RideTech kits are to put in. I am just having the worst luck ever, and I've done, I don't know, half a dozen of these. So let's get going. Alrighty, we're going to raise this rear end up and get it into place and get the two top mounts with a through bolt in them. Put your bushings in. And this is why I didn't tighten these all the way, because they have a lot of breakaway torque while they're breaking in. So you'll be really forcing them to be where you need them to be. All right. All right, so let's get this in here. So I'm going to get the tops in and then get the bottoms in, and then we'll be 4-link located at least. So that was rather anticlimactic. There we go. This is the side that's going to fight me. So let's start up. Come down. There we go. So this is where I've got to manhandle this R joint to go where I need it to go. There we go. You got a couple of nuts and washers on here to hold it from falling out onto my feet. And because I'm so flustered, I just threw 2 washers on there instead of a washer and a nut. I'm having a day, people. I'm having a day. It's not always sunshine and buttercups. All right. I'll get this up a little bit more where I want it. And I'm going to put these bottom ones in my starting position is going to be the lower holes here. They don't say this anywhere in the instructions, but I know from doing previous ones that I measure them like this actually to my main finger knuckle, which is that hole. And that is your starting point. And then, like I said, you can alter this wherever you need it for your pinion angle, so you can get some rear end rise or squat or whatever you need. But for now, that's where we're going, and we're not too far off. Oh, my light just died. All right, let me get a new light, and let me get these bottom ones in. All right, so we're all located. Nuts are all hand tightened, so we're good to go now. Rear end goes up and down. You can do all the things that it's supposed to do. So now I'm going to go through it and tighten every one of my bolts to their torque spec. All right, so the brackets, coilovers, all that stuff, that's all going to be next. I'm doing this all in no particular order. Also, like I said, how I base these off of other ones I've done. Same thing with my lower coilover mount. Now, if we did not have a 9-inch rear end, you have these brackets that, this is the driver's side one. This would bolt into existing holes. I think you have to drill the top one here, the bottom one bolts in your existing shock hole for your factory rear end. But since we're using The 9-inch rear end, it comes with all your brackets already welded onto there, so you don't have to do any of that. So, as I was saying, you have lower mounts, which are right here, and then your upper mounts actually bolt into your factory shock mount location, and those are these mounts right here. So I'm going to throw those in, and then we're going to assemble our rear coilovers. The only difference on these as compared to the front is you have to turn these knobs all the way in and then take out your 10 Torx bit or Torx screw there, because otherwise it's too big of a diameter and it doesn't fit inside this collar. So that's the only difference between that and the fronts. And you know, these are a double I instead of having a bayonet style. But I'm going to get all these brackets and stuff mounted, get these on here, and then maybe we'll put the guts inside the rear end. I will give you one note. These upper mounts, as you can see, they're offset. You want to put it so the offset goes towards the center of the vehicle. And they are nut and bolt with washers. You also want to make sure that you bolt upwards, not downwards, because if you bolt downwards, it's going to interfere with your bolt to hold your shock that goes through the eye. And here we have our passenger side coilover in. I don't have these tightened yet. I just wanted to get it all mocked up in here. You got plenty of clearance in between here. The one and only thing I don't like about it is that they have you put your adjustment knob to the top instead of down here. You cannot flip this around, because if you do, this cup actually hits here. That's why they have you do it this. Plus, you need to have your adjustment where you can get it, you know, rather easily. So I mount them so that I don't know if we can get up in here. There we go. So that the knob is towards the outside of the car, because you have your exhaust coming through here, and the last thing you want to do is melt your knob. So, and as I said before, I put these in holes that I know will work for this car, because they're the exact same holes that this car is in. But this is all your adjustability up and down, these three right here. And you can also flip this bracket completely over if you need even more height or drop. And same thing with this. This is all going to be adjusted as you drive, but the second hole down is where they say is your good starting point. Pretty much stock suspension geometry, which honestly for 99% of everybody out there that's doing these kits, that's all you need. Now I'm going to put my other side in over there. Then I've got to grab my pumpkin and throw that in. I actually have to grab a gasket. So they don't give you a gasket, they have you silicone everything. And I'm not a fan of that. I've seen too many instances where silicone leaks, so you use a gasket with a skim coat of silicone, and usually never have an issue. Once pumpkin's in, we can throw the axles in, and we have a sway bar to put on a rear. I was going to say then we're done and we can start on the brakes, but we have a rear sway bar to do too, so let me get on that. So you watched me assemble and install our final coilover. You watched me throw the pumpkin in and throw the axles in. And so I have my brake hose mounted there. So when I remake my lines, I will be running down the front and then over to wherever I end up terminating them into the hoses that come with the Willwood kit, or I might just right angle them out the back and same thing. But I like to keep them as far away from the coils and the exhaust as possible. So next up, and final in the back, yeah, I think final is the rear sway bar. Also have a front sway bar, but I'm not putting that in yet until I hear back from RideTech Engineering so we can figure out our bump stop issue, or our steering stop issue, I mean. So sway bar, rear. You've got a sway bar. You've got brackets that mount to the axle, brackets that go to those, or your sway bar bushings that go to those with the U-bolts. You have some turnbuckles, and somewhere in one of these kits, I believe it's this one, you have rod links or end links that go in with those. And then everything gets on there mounted. These are your brackets. These mount to the other side of the end link and will go to the frame. And the way they have you do it is you get your sway bar all mounted in here, all perfectly centered. You put your links on, you put the mounts on the links, and then you bring them up somewhere up in here, wherever they land naturally. Then you drill holes and you install them. So we did the same exact setup on the GTO. It's a nice setup. One cool thing about them is that, so these are what hold your end links on the sway bar side, and you can slide these in and out on the sway bar to increase or decrease leverage to basically stiffen or soften your handling on sway anyways. So I am going to get this bar placed up in there, and I will be back in a second and show you the mechanisms, how they clamp to the axle themselves. Alright, so here's the general setup for the main bolts that clamp your sway bar to the axle. You have your U-bolts that go over just like normal. It goes through this bracket. You notice this bracket has some pretty serious teeth on it. That's so it can, once you tighten it, it bites down into the axle and it's not going to slip and it's not going to rotate. Then your clamps, or your bushing holders, just regular bolts. So what you're going to do is basically now you're going to center your clamps from side to side and center your sway bar from side to side, and then make sure these are actually vertical, and then tighten everything up. And then we can move on to the end links. All right, so I got these all centered, my brackets anyways. They're about 14 inches from my wheel flange, or my axle flange, I mean. And so now I'm going to just make sure that my sway bar itself is centered within the axle. And then we put on these collars. You get one on each side. You can put them on the inside of this bushing or the outside of that bushing. I'm going to do the inside because that's where I have my most flat real estate. And these are going to lock the sway bar itself from going side to side. And these are simply 2 Allens. Gonna put a little bit of Loctite on those because you don't want them loosening up, and tighten them up. And there you have it. So you've got this one holding pressure there, you've got that one holding pressure there, and that keeps your sway bar from going side to side. Still have plenty of easy movement up and down. So I think, because it's almost 4:30, I think. I've been working late. I was here till 6 last night trying to figure out what's going on with those bump stops, steering stops. And I still haven't heard back from, I almost said Strange Engineering, from RideTech. So I don't know what's going on. I know I have checked every possible thing I could check, including laying stuff from this one next to stuff from this one, to know that everything I can check and all my triangulation points are all correct. So if something is off, I have a feeling it's with that lower control arm, or those lower control arms in the front. Hopefully we can get this situated, because Boss Man wants this to be, today's Tuesday, wants this to be done and have the big block and the 4L60 in it, so it can go off to our paint guy, have the rest of the body assembled and everything wet sanded. No pressure at all. All right, so next up, we're going to put on our lower mounts, which these go here. I forget which orientation, if it's this way or this way. I'll have to look at the instructions real quick. And then your end links go on here, and the other pieces, the end links go to the other brackets. The other brackets you lay up here, and you throw some holes in some metal and put some bolts and stuff in there. So your lower sway bar mounts, or sway bar end link mounts, come with these socket head screws, and they give you anti-seize because these are ones you don't want to put thread lock on, because they want you, in essence, be able to loosen these up to change your settings. So we're going to do that, and these are big enough. There's enough clamping force on there. Should be good to go. Shouldn't have to worry about them shaking loose. Alrighty, so I got those on. This is how they orient. They drop down and are offset to the outside of the vehicle, because if you had them this way, your end link is going to be in here, and that's right in the way of where your exhaust and stuff, or exhaust mainly, is going to be going. So I'm going to put together my end link. It's just like a tie rod end link. It's all it is, just a turnbuckle and you know, a tie rod end. And then we're going to throw those on there with our brackets, see where our brackets land, and mark and drill some holes for those. So this is said turnbuckle, turn link. This is not like a regular tie rod one with reverse threads. So you can't just turn it and it'll get wider or smaller. It's just going to move this in and out. What you do want to set this to, according to the instructions, is 6 inches center to center. And there you go. That's 6 inch center to center. You'll notice there's almost no thread showing, and that's okay. And there you have it. I still don't have all this stuff tightened yet, but you can see it sits itself right up in there, and you're just going to drill these 2 holes, and they give you nuts and bolts for that. And here you can see you can adjust this way or that way for softer or stiffer. It's a fulcrum stuff. It's science, you know, pretty cool. So I am going to put my other side together and put that up there and make sure this brake line's not in the way. And then we're doing some holes. And there we have it. That is your finished end link install that completes the rear sway bar install. This goes for their 9-inch or goes on your factory rear end. The GTO has its factory BOP 8.5 in it. Has this exact same sway bar in it. But as you can see, if you want to slide it out or slide it in, you can do that. And then you can lengthen or shorten your turnbuckles. I should probably put you up there. Your turnbuckles to get a little bit better, straighter angle on this. And that is it. Now, unfortunately, I'm still waiting to hear back from RideTech Engineering, so I can figure out what's going on this front end of this thing, because all I have left to do on the front end is correct those steer and stop issues, but put the front sway bar on. And then we can start our wheelward brake install. So for now, it's almost 5 o'clock. I'm done for the day. Hopefully, I hear from engineering and we can come up with a solution. That's the word I was looking for. And get this thing going. But I will talk to you tomorrow. All right, well, we're going to move on to the front sway bar and finish up the suspension install. You get your sway bar, you get sway bar mount brackets, you get all your hardware, you get end links. This is the rear stuff we're not using from yesterday. Just a note, they give you 3/8 and 5/16 hardware, because depending on year and whatever, you could have either 3/8 or 5/16 bolt holes here with your captured nuts. So we're going to start by mounting our mounting plates that our sway bar is going to mount to. All right, to mount these up, this goes as such. So you have one countersunk hole with your countersunk bolt. This is going to go forward position, just like that, and you're going to tighten these up all the way and torque them to spec. I'm going to pull them back down and put some Loctite on. I just wanted to show you that it mounts forward position, not backwards position, because you have to move the sway bar forward a little bit to clear everything with the way their setup is. All right, so those are all in and tightened, and just so you can see why you have 2 different style bolts here, because this is going to bolt up to here and the bushing is right here, and you don't want a bolt coming through pushing on the bottom of the bushing and preloading that into your sway bar. All right, your sway bar. So your sway bar is going to mount just like this in this orientation. So the kick up is going to be the top. So we're going to pick this up, put it on there. They give you 4 bolts with 4 washers to hang this thing up there. So that's what we're going to do right now. And then you put in your end links. I don't think you need me to show you how to do those. End links or end links. And that concludes the installation of a RideTech front and rear suspension setup on coilovers, not on bags, for a, what's the brake year? I think it's 64 to 72 A body. Not sure. But this is a 71 or 72. So, as I said, I'm still just waiting to hear back from our rep and from engineering to figure out this issue. But other than that, that is the complete suspension installation. So, not too shabby, and don't take into account any of the problems I've had on this one. I don't know what it is. It's been a rough week for me, so this has been kind of fighting me the whole way, but it is an easy setup to put in. So that's that, and the Firebird should be starting up soon. We're waiting for the carburetor to come back from getting rebuilt, and we are getting ready to get our engine for this. This has changed. This is our 71 project, C10. This has changed from the Blueprint engine to an LSA from Boris at Street Machinery, because Blueprint was about 6 to 8 weeks out on their engines. And the time frame didn't work. Oh, also, our 70 F100 is back from being wet sanded, and boy does it look good. All right, well, I will talk to you guys in the next video, because we have plenty of work to do, so there'll be plenty more videos. Talk to you later.